Any good stories from the road?
Pipe up.
I wish we'd gotten seen a little bit more out of our punter.
I'm starting to puke.
It makes my stomach hurt.
I thought he was going to die.
I'm starting to throw up in my mouth a little bit.
He's on the probiotics.
Is Georgia playing the 1985 Bears this weekend or what?
A lot of Todd talk.
Rat poison proof.
They're mongoose.
We will not be hunted at the University of Georgia. I can promise you that. The hunting that we do will be done from us going the other direction.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Glenn Schumann is not going to Alabama to be the Tide's defensive coordinator. We'll start right there. I'm Wes Blankenship, Jake Rowe, Jake Cruz, Palmer Toms. Gentlemen, what does this mean for the Dawgs? We were chatting right before we started here. Does it necessarily mean that Georgia has eliminated all threats to take Glenn Schumann away, or is this just worth celebrating in its own right?
For all I know, Glenn Schumann could go be the athletic director at Point University. I really don't know. I do know that he's not going to go to Alabama and become the defensive coordinator. I mean, maybe Nick Saban truly does have something up his sleeve and he's going to bring him back as an analyst. Maybe Glenn Schumann doesn't like money and wants to go back and make 5 figures or something. I don't know, but I'll tell you what, I didn't expect Kevin Steele. That's really what I'd like to talk about a little bit more than anything. I'm kind of like that, like I was telling Roos about this joke that Nate Bargatze did the other day. You walk in and sometimes there's people that, kind of have some things that they'd really like to talk to you about, but, they're a little controversial. And I'd like to talk more about Kevin Steele becoming Alabama's defense coordinator because that's pretty hilarious to me.
Well, I know. You got to take, if you're a Georgia fan, I say take a victory lap because Glenn Schumann's sticking around for sure. I mean, Alabama was easily the biggest threat, right? And who could have blamed him? It's a unilateral move to some degree. I mean, you were going to transfer over to a very similar job under a similar type coach. And it probably boiled down to money and loyalty in the end. And Georgia was able to match the money. And then it looks like the loyalty's with Kirby Smart. Like you said, you can't write anything off. Who knows? Maybe he becomes the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals after this season. But they've done such things before. But listen, I'm not gonna sit here and deride Alabama for the Kevin Steele hire. I think that's a push. I think it's a push over Pete Golding. I really do.
Seems like a push, yeah, from where they were. I mean, in a vacuum, yeah, Steele. Stop the steal, but
Pete Golding's such a good recruiter though. And I don't know, maybe whatever happens at Alabama, I completely agree with a lot of their fans who are saying they've got to fix linebacker because they're just not, they haven't been very good at linebacker for a while.
They got Trez.
Henry To'oTo'o is not toe. He hadn't been that great for them. And then Wes, I want to actually ask you a question because we don't get a chance to say, hey, Wes, what do you think, bud? What do you think about, Glenn? Were you worried? Were you concerned about Glenn Schumann kind of moving on? And did it at any point get like, man, this is just too quiet. It's going to come out of nowhere.
I think when I saw Tresman Marshall go and I saw all of the Alabama fans begging in the Twitter mentions of Glenn Schumann's tweet, and it just reeked of desperation at that point. And then nothing happened after that for several days. And then days became weeks. Kind of became apparent to me that Bama wasn't going to get that guy. So I don't know if I was ever worried about it. But as far as Schumann's decision, I thought maybe Bama could have struck while the iron was hot right when Tresman Marshall transferred, if that was going to be the time period for Schumann and Bama to work something out, but it never happened.
Yeah. But here's the thing, and I think it's big to keep Glenn Schumann, but Georgia would have been just fine without him. It's not even that. I mean, I think it's a bigger hit to the inside linebacker coaching than it is the overall defense because you've got Kirby there who's called plays and been a successful defensive coordinator. You've got Will Muschamp that's a co-coordinator there. I think the inside linebackers is the position where it would have hurt Georgia more. And I think if you're looking at the two coordinators, Georgia fans would give up Glenn Schumann to keep Todd Monken.
I don't disagree.
You seem to disagree with that, Jake.
Luckily, that doesn't have to be a choice.
Man. Glenn Schumann is He's beloved, man. I mean,
but here's the thing: is he's probably only here in Athens for another. It's just a matter of time until he gets a head coach.
Man, he's already been there for 7.
And Kirby, but you've got, but
the grad assistant when he showed up.
Who's to say he's not the new Kirby, where he's just waiting out
you had been a grad assistant,
the right.
And you have Kirby. You have Kirby. You got your defensive guy, right?
Yeah, I just you're as good defensively as you are because of Glenn Schumann, and not just because of inside linebackers. It's because of how he recruits everybody, and he's a tone setter in that program. And listen, man, I think Glenn Schumann is Kirby Smart to Nick Saban. I mean, I think that's kind of the way it is, and I'm not saying it's going to fall apart or anything like that, but Glenn Schumann is to Kirby what Kirby was to Nick Saban, and I think if you make this or get things,
you disagree. I don't think there's a more clear comparison between the two.
I'm gonna Palmer. I think where you're coming from, and I sort of agree with this. Glenn Schumann was not the traveled coach that Kirby Smart was by the time Kirby Smart found himself under Nick Saban. And so, what's happened for Glenn Schumann is he's gotten to grow up under Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart grew up on the road with under Nick Saban in a lot of cases, but he was at LSU, he was at Miami. He's been at Valdosta State. He's been a well-traveled guy, and so he kind of cut his chops. Glenn Schumann, I'm not saying he woke up on third base by any stretch of the imagination, but I assume that's where you're coming from.
No, he helped Georgia build what Georgia's got.
Yes, and I agree with that. What you're saying is Kirby was Nick Saban's protege, and I absolutely agree with that. And Glenn Schumann is Kirby's protege. There's a reason why he brought him over and promoted him from the position he was in at Alabama. But I just don't think that it would be as detrimental. I think that Kirby had a huge part of the reason Alabama was so successful. I think Glenn Schumann is a big part, but I don't think he's
massive.
I don't think he's as big to Georgia's success as what Kirby was to Alabama's.
I think he's every bit as big because not only is Glenn Schumann, and you can kind of go back to the Schumann-Monken thing, Glenn Schumann is an ace recruiter, like an absolute ace recruiter, involved with everybody they recruit pretty much on either side of the ball. We talked about you could talk about the experience. Well, Kirby had been more places than Schumann had before he became a defensive coordinator. He hadn't had as much on-field experience as Schumann had by the time because Schumann was an on-field coach for 6 years before he started calling plays. So he was an on-field coach for that. Kirby had 1 year at LSU, 1 year at Georgia as running backs coach, a couple years at Valdosta State.
Go Blazers!
Right,
he'd been in the NFL though. I mean, by the time that he showed
up,
and
he had one NFL season. I mean, so you're talking about like 5 years versus 6 years of on-field coaching. I mean, I feel like Kirby was there to help Nick Saban build Alabama into what Alabama became, and then I think Glenn Schumann in a lot of ways is so incredibly similar. Now that doesn't mean that it took him a while longer. He didn't have the same amount of experience Kirby did. Coming in, once Kirby got to Alabama, but he's developed it before he became a defensive play caller. But I don't know, man. You look back at the comments on Glenn Schumann when he was first hired. 3 people in the room to finalize defensive game plans: Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, and Glenn Schumann. It's before the guy ever coached on the field.
All right, look, the roads are different for Schumann and Smart. I'm not necessarily looking at it from that perspective. Yeah, the resumes up to this point are different. I'm looking at what's happening right now in the context of what it means for Georgia and for Bama. What did we know about what Saban told Kirby when he was shopping around and could have taken the South Carolina job, could have taken the Auburn job? He said, wait for the right opportunity to come up. And that Bama kicked the tires on Schumann. What does that say about what Bama is right now compared to Georgia, at least in the mind of Glenn Schumann? Glenn Schumann decided that Georgia is a better destination right now than a lateral move to Bama. And that was not the case 5 to 10 years ago, guys. That is what I'm looking at right now.
Yeah.
Glenn Schumann is a co-defensive coordinator at the defending back-to-back national champion program in the country. he said, "Thanks, Bama. Maybe later, but not right now."
And maybe probably got some more cash.
Yeah,
Hope
sure,
so.
of course.
We don't know about yet.
You know, and who knows? At some point, perhaps Nick Saban retires, and perhaps they're looking for a young up and coming defensive mind, and Glenn Schumann.
Who's to say? And that's
Glenn Schuman's going to take his sweatsuit to
could be it.
Alabama, baby.
Let me ask y'all that. But I mean, let's just, do y'all think that Alabama would take a chance on a person who hasn't been a head coach before, just like Georgia did with Kirby?
To me, Alabama, the next guy for Alabama should probably be somebody like that, because if I'm an established guy, I don't want to have to walk in and follow Nick
you don't
Saban.
want it.
But if you're an established guy, you're walking into a program that's probably very well off, even in the post Saban era. I mean,
he just saw Dan Lanning take a Power 5 job.
Palmer, I know you've probably never seen it before. Alabama used to be just, ball.
Mike Shula, guys.
Yeah, they used to be, groin sweat, dude. It was bad.
I was at the Tyrone Pro Throw leg break game.
Oh, God.
Ooh,
I was there.
That was against Florida.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, they had beat the crap out of
I thought
Florida.
that was Southern Miss.
Oh, was it Southern Miss?
It was disgusting.
Southern Miss was the catch that he had.
Oh yeah, he caught the catch around the guy's helmet.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, there's been all this conjecture, right, about like Dabo Swinney perhaps being the next guy, given his roots and his ties, whatever. If I'm Dabo Swinney, I'm gonna stay at Clemson, let them build a statue of me, and kick my feet up and be the AD.
God, he's such a whiner, though. I need him to get out of football quick. Joel Osteen has got to get out of football quick, man. He is such a whiner. This whole thing last week about belly aching about his fans, maybe they won't be upset about that. God, Dabo, shut up, man. He needs to get that Gus Malzahn treatment, that Christy Malzahn. Just shut up. He needs that. He needs somebody to tell him that.
I wouldn't leave Clemson to go to Alabama to follow Nick Saban, though.
No, especially with what Dabo has built that program into being.
Sure, he should realistically be, if Clemson fans are keeping proper perspective, he should be able to coach there as long as he would like to. Just
with what
the ACC is right now.
And I'm not saying, listen, if Clemson fans find this, they're gonna come at me for that. Georgia should let Kirby Smart stay at Georgia for as long as he wants to, for the same reason. The programs were in much different positions when the guy who's currently there took the program over.
Well, and the other thing you've got to consider with the Clemson job is that in this new era of the college football playoff, you win your conference, you are absolutely in it, no doubt whatsoever. The Clemson should be able to win the ACC with kind of where the ACC is at, the lack of competition, at least SEC level competition. There's much more competition if you go take the Alabama job than there is if you stick with Clemson.
I don't know, man. Miami got a lot better today. Let me ask
you this. Ultimately, boiled down to it, and because somebody just mentioned it over here, and I was thinking about it as well. If you had to choose between the two, Glenn Schumann or Will Muschamp,
if you're Georgia's,
if you got to keep one, you got to keep one.
If I'm keeping anybody on Georgia staff for life, it's Glenn Schumann.
It's Todd Monken.
It's Glenn Schumann, 100%. Todd Monken's gonna die a lot sooner than Glenn Schumann.
Monken out on the road recruiting. Ro, you've kind of alluded to it, but I want to get your laser focused crystal thoughts on Steele. You don't seem.
I just don't think. I mean, he had a couple good, decent years at Auburn when Auburn was kind of loaded with talent, and I'm talking about decent years, man. I'm not talking about like astronomically good. I mean, I guess they did have they did put it on Georgia that one time in 2017, and then turned right around and got it put on them. But I just don't. Nick Saban's done this before, and he was so upset with the hire of Kevin Steele as defensive coordinator. He fired him after a year and hired Kirby Smart. I mean, that's just kind of how that worked out. So I don't know, man. I just don't think Kevin, and I always hate making definitive statements like this, mainly because I'm not trying to piss anybody off. And I don't like it when people come back, wanting to stab me because I'm not trying to get after them. But I don't know. I just don't think he's a very good coach. But one more thing on this Saban thing. The one thing about following him, it's not the shadow for me, is they'll never love you like they loved him.
The shadow.
It's a Marcus Aurelius thing, like this is like an emperor of Rome thing. They will never love you like they loved him.
Now, while we're on the topic of Bama coordinators, what do you think about Tommy Rees?
I know nothing about Tommy Rees. I know he knows how to force feed a tight end.
I saw him yell at the guy on the phone, and that's all I know about him.
My feel personally was that Alabama could have done worse than Kevin Steele.
Yeah, they could have done Todd.
Jury's out on the Tommy Rees hire. I personally think that was a downgrade from Bill O'Brien, but he's a young up and coming guy. So I get wanting to roll the dice on a guy, and a lot of guys have had a lot of success at Alabama. I mean, the talent's there, right? I mean,
he doesn't have that whole.
But to me,
probably a lot better for everyone around the facility.
The Steele hire is better than the Rees hire.
I don't know about that. That one's tough because I just don't know much about Tommy Rees. I just don't know how good he is. I just know he could have been at LSU last year, and he chose to stick around in Notre Dame, and then he left, which is kind of weird to me. Is there a Brian Kelly riff there? I don't know, but he had a chance to go to Notre Dame last year. Is there a Marcus Freeman riff?
Gosh,
so
could it possibly be harder to work for Brian Kelly than it is to work for Nick Saban?
I wouldn't know, man. I mean, I've always heard that working for Saban. I'm not going to say I've always heard this. I heard this from Jeremy Pruitt. But Jeremy Pruitt once told me that Nick Saban is the easiest dude in the world to work for if you just like doing your job. Like if you just like getting after it and doing things the way you're supposed to do them every single day. You pointed this out, Wes, when Kirby had that kind of that diatribe at that monologue. Of where he talked about
which one, man? He's had several.
The monotony of being great. The habits, the repeating the habits, getting comfortable with the monotony of doing things the right way and the process every single day. That's just a big part of it. If that's you and you can do that, man, you can work for Nick Saban for years. But if you don't like to kind of get after it, you're not going to work for Nick Saban and Kirby Smart for very long.
You are an AI program, you will love working for Nick Saban. Guys, no AI programming over at Breaking T. This is 100% authentic human creativity geared directly for all the Georgia fans out there. Breaking T's got T-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, coffee mugs with all of the cool slogans and designs that you can think of. Breaking T is the place.
There was I saw a girl at CVS, Wes. I went to pick up some prescriptions for my daughter and my son. They had strep and they had antibiotics, whatever. Went to CVS and a girl was wearing the circle one, with the Champs logo on it. So pretty cool to see Breaking T out in the community. I didn't say anything because I don't know, don't want to be weird.
Is that a Breaking T?
Yeah.
Who are you wearing? Breaking T.
Who are you wearing?
Yeah.
We're in Milan.
Let me stop you right there in the middle of the adult undergarment aisle. Who are you wearing?
Yeah. Next thing I know, I've got something cold pressing against my cheek and I've got zip ties on my wrist.
Tennessee man is back. Speaking of zip ties, Tennessee man is back in the building.
The villain we needed.
Absolutely, man.
Let's talk about the Senior Bowl, y'all. Christopher Smith, Kenny McIntosh, Warren McClendon, the pod. What do we make of what the Dogs did in Mobile, Alabama?
I didn't watch a single snap.
It was not Saturday was not all too impressive. Warren McClendon didn't play.
How much does this game matter?
It doesn't. It's a great opportunity. I think it's a great opportunity for guys that didn't. I saw a tweet and I didn't think it was spot on, but I thought it was pretty good, was the fact that it's the Senior Bowl. That means these guys did not come out in their first opportunity to come out into the NFL draft. And in some cases, they didn't come out in their second opportunity either. These guys have been around. They're not necessarily, in most cases, your first round surefire pick. So I think it's a good opportunity for those guys that have potential to be drafted, to be a day 2, day 3 type guy. And I think if you look at Georgia's representation there, that's exactly what that group is. It's a good opportunity for those kind of guys to interact with NFL scouts that they might not get, the opportunity to do at the combine or at a pro day, where attention is on guys that are of higher caliber. That being said, I think the week of practice was good for these guys. Didn't keep up with Pod a ton. He made one, missed one in the game. McClendon practiced all week, did not play in the game.
Kenny dropped a pass, but
Kenny dropped a pass, but then got hurt and sat out the second half. Chris Smith finished with 4 tackles. So
the game's not that important.
The game,
Isaiah Wynn proved that. I mean, he went and had a great week of practice, and then was like, "I'm out. I'm going to go get labrum surgery, guys." I mean, that's how that went. It was like, "All right, guys, see you. I did my part. I'm going to go have labrum surgery."
I think that's kind of what McClendon did, knowing that he was. I mean, there's a good chance that that's what he was doing, but having come off of that knee injury that he suffered in the. What was it, the SEC championship game? Yeah. Knee injury not all too long ago. In that car crash not all too long ago. I mean, it's a situation where he probably did something similar to that. And you're right. The game is not all that important. What's important is the week of practice and the interviews and such. And from everything I've heard from people that were down there, Georgia guys did great in that. But the game, like I said, not all too impressive. And it's really hard to get in a rhythm in those kind of games because you're splitting reps, every other drive or every other quarter or whatever. Chris started. I do know that he was the starting safety for his team. And clearly the Georgia player that played the most in that game because he was available for all 4 quarters.
But Jake, did you see this arc for Chris Smith? I mean, I think what we're talking about, like a 3rd round-ish pick at this point. I don't know that going back in it and from a recruiting standpoint that I thought that he was going to be like that highly drafted. I thought that he had the potential, but he seems like a pretty solid, consistent pick on a second day.
I thought when Chris Smith was getting recruited, I thought we were probably looking at a depth corner piece that maybe, kind of a Tyreek McGee, level player. But you heard it about him like early on. Like, man, this cat's one of the best tacklers on the team. We don't know if he can hold up physically. He had a lot of nicks and bruises, but it didn't take him long to move to safety. And he's done a really good job, man. I mean, he's a really good football player. I'm interested to see where he gets drafted because he's not very big. He's under 5'11". I don't know if he's going to run like Earl Thomas did. I doubt it. So that, if you're going to be small, you've got to cover a lot of ground. And but I do believe a team can get him and they can maybe even get a nickel corner out of it because he does have some corner skills. I just don't think he's going to run super great. If he can get anything under like a 4.55, it's probably going to be real solid for him. And if he could somehow crack a 4.5, it would be incredible. Listen, Wes was at my house last year for the only time I've ever had Wes over. We're doing an oyster roast when we found out what George Pickens ran at the combine. They can shock us. Okay. Mm-hmm. They can absolutely shock us. So, it's one of those things where Smith has an opportunity, and we'll see because the film's there, and he's a really good football player. A minute ago, while Palmer was saying something, and he was talking about the thing, he mentioned the wreck for Warren McClendon. I kind of started chuckling. If you're watching that, I was not laughing at that. I was laughing at this dude over here in the comments. We've now got somebody named Will Muschamp's reading glasses.
Oh yeah. Reading glasses has been
first time I've ever seen
a mainstay of the comment section. I want to say.
Has he?
Yeah.
God, I love that because I do love those reading glasses. Those are watching Will Muschamp have them things on the tip of his nose and kind of hold the thing up. God, man, that's some of the funniest stuff ever.
No, I'm really happy for Chris Smith because I'll tell you this: going back even into high school, great kid, man, outstanding person. Just everything that you wanted out of a player. Played with William Poole. I think a lot of people probably forget that at Hateville Charter down there. Yeah, and it doesn't get more Atlanta than Hateville Charter, man. But I'm really happy to see that it's happening for him, and I hope that all the best things happen for him. Like you said, I thought he was a depth guy personally. I didn't know that he would ever ascend to the level and put this many starts under his belt, make as many impactful plays as he's made. A great rotational guy, but to see what he's done, I think a really nice testament to the Georgia developmental system.
For 100%. Sure. That's what's separating them from everybody else right now. Regardless of what Smith does, someone brought up on our board today the two plays that will never leave their mind over the last couple seasons. Chris Smith had both his hands in that Clemson pick 6 and the field goal return against LSU. And I pointed out too, when you go back and watch that fluky bounce off the helmet, Smile London interception, Chris Smith is the guy who laid the lumber on that hit. So he was developed well, and he made some huge plays for Georgia in his career. I want to get to something that Jake Rowe brought up. Speaking of our message board over at DawgsHQ.com, you can still sign up and be a premium member for $29.99 from now until the start of August, or the end of August, rather. You brought this up, Jake, and I don't want to ask the question. I want you to ask the question because I want to make sure that it is asked the proper way so we understand what we're talking about on the stage here.
We're dealing with a hypothetical here, okay? By the way,
talking in hypotheticals.
Some young lady named Jenny in here. I don't know if she's talking about us. She doesn't think we're too swift.
That is correct.
Yeah, not very smart. We've never claimed to be. We've never claimed. This is not
a requirement of the job.
This is not the Georgia show powered by Mensa. Okay, this is just Dawgs HQ, and we're not very smart. My question to our board was this: if Brock Bowers comes back, and he is coming back, if Brock Bowers goes into this season, Georgia wins another national championship. Let's say they go 15-0 again. That happened last year. It can happen again. Brock Bowers is Georgia's #1 offensive weapon again. He goes for over 1,000 yards, becoming the first tight end to ever do it. Maybe breaks the school record for receiving touchdowns in a season. He needs 11. Very doable. All this stuff sets records. For the third straight year, he will have been Georgia's #1 weapon on the offensive side of the ball. All of that stuff. Will he be the greatest Bulldog ever? Listen, my opinion doesn't really matter. But if he does all of those things and has a big hand in making it happen again, I think he might have to be, because I don't know. There won't be another player except for Cedric Van Pran, and offensive linemen just do not get the kind of love, that had as big of a production hand in 3 national championships, something that's never been done in the sport.
SVP touches the ball first every play. Let's not count him out. Show the O-line some love.
But it's literally like the quickest, most unimportant thing after it's done. It's I don't know. I love playing center. I did. I loved playing center in high school.
I bet you were hell as a center too.
I don't know, man.
Oh, I mean, you were. Yeah, I mean, listen, you weren't getting by on size. You had to be scrapping.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I did fight a little bit. I blocked this kid from Clinch County one time, and I remember the ref going this kid was complaining. He was like, he's holding. And I just said, no, I'm not. And he goes, okay. That's just how it went. I don't know why. It was just one of the weirdest interactions ever.
But, the ref said okay, or the defense?
No, the kid did. Like the guy that said I was holding him. He goes, oh, okay. Like, thanks for taking my word for it, kid. I probably was holding him. I probably bit him at some point in the game.
But it's tough to get under that face mask with the teeth. I will say that. You got to.
We also played against Jonathan Smith, Fred Smith. It was what they called him there, who ended up going to Georgia Tech, playing for the Buffalo Bills. He was a 1,000-yard receiver at Tech. I remember tackling air when he picked us off. At Clinch. So, But yeah, I mean, no, I think Brock Bowers, man, back to that. I just think that doing something that's never been done, Georgia goes in and all of a sudden you're looking at winning 33 or 34 out of 45 games. Yeah. No. Wait, 43 or 44 out of 45 games. Sorry. Going in and doing something like that with Brock Bowers leading the way the entire time. Like, I have a hard time with it, man. I know people are saying Herschel, and I know people are saying, Stetson and Kirby. And listen, if you're a coach, it's just kind of hard to put you in that same category.
Sure. Kirby, from a player standpoint, it certainly was not Kirby.
Right.
And I think you should explain your position on Herschel, which is what I agree with too. Herschel was such an advanced athlete for his time that it's almost an unfair comparison. Like, yes, he was incredible. He's probably the greatest college football player of all time, regardless of team. But Herschel Walker was a mutant.
Yeah.
I mean, if you put
Stallion,
it would be like if Darnell Washington ran a 4.2.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of a similar thing. I mean, to some degree, it's an unfair comparison.
Yeah, you had Herschel out there, defensive linemen were outweighing him by 15, 20 pounds.
Sure, exactly.
At best. And, I'm not saying that that's the only reason he's great. I think Herschel could play today with that size and that speed combination and be very, very, very good. One of the elite players in college football. But I don't think he would just run roughshod over the sport like he did for 3 straight years.
There's parity in the sport now to a huge degree. Even though people I know don't want to say that, it's clearly reflected in the tweets that I get tagged from On3. People replying about how much they hate the rankings.
I hit that damn mute button so fast anytime they tag me in one of those pictures, man.
There's more parity than there's ever been in college football. And at that time, I don't think that was the case. And listen, I totally agree with you. Herschel Walker in this era, still incredibly successful, probably still a Heisman contender. But
and that to me is the line of demarcation that makes me say no on Brock. And fair or not, tight end's not going to win the Heisman Trophy.
What if he did?
Well, we're not talking about winning the Heisman Trophy.
No, I'm saying, but that's what people would look at and say, well, we didn't win a Heisman, and that's the kinds of things that get brought up in debates.
When's the last time a running back did win the Heisman? Now that we're saying Herschel,
maybe
Derek.
No, I'm saying
Derrick Henry.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I'm just going back to kind of, okay, if we're juxtaposing everything to the current climate, I mean, if we're transporting everything to the current climate, then, maybe Herschel wouldn't be all that heavily considered for a Heisman because it's been a long time now for running backs. It's, we've seen receivers win it since. We've seen quarterbacks win it since. Running backs so devalued now. Man, Herschel's amazing. Herschel put Georgia on the map in a lot of ways. That stretch in the early 80s,
unmatched.
He was responsible for it. Like, Coach Dooley's an amazing man, did a lot of amazing things for Georgia when he came in and kind of reversed the curse in a lot of ways of what Georgia was dealing with. And he recruited Herschel, and he got Herschel there, and he had some good teams. He was a great athletic director. He's a great man, and he deserves every single flower we throw his way. But Herschel was the primary reason for 1980 to 1982. And I get that. But 3 national titles, the bell cow playmaker on offense for all 3 national titles, 15-0. I mean, like 15 game seasons.
Here's the reason why I said it on the board. He hasn't, at least up to this point in the 2 so far, hasn't been the face of the team.
And that's like, it's not fair, but the tight end is just not going to get that.
Well, see, this is
okay. Hold on,
he might be the most productive player.
Here's how we bring this all full circle.
He's definitely not going to be that.
If he does this, because it's fair to say, I think, given everything around him, that Stetson Bennett was the face of the team for the last 2 years. If he does,
I don't even know if he was. I don't even know if he was 2 years ago because of the.
Probably Jordan Davis.
I don't think he was 2 years ago.
Because
I think this past
year
he was.
If he does it without Stetson, though, then that I think that puts a different spin on things. Personally,
if Carson back or
Matthew
Brock,
C says Georgia can win a national title without Brock Bowers. Georgia doesn't win either one of these past 2 national titles without Brock Bowers. 100%.
Or they don't win them without Todd Monken. I mean, it's kind of a chicken and the egg with how much of an impact either guy had.
They might.
Todd Monken's in the middle of the longest stretch he's ever called plays
right, now,
in his life.
They might still win that 21 title without.
If Todd Monken leaves, takes the job at wherever, Baltimore, Tampa, or wherever, I don't even know where he's still a candidate. If he leaves and Brock and the Dogs and Carson Beck or Brock Vandegrift are the QB, then I will change my mind if that is the backdrop, and I'll say yes.
There are a lot of people.
Was the common thread.
Wes, you made the comment a minute ago. You were like, it's not fair, but this is the way it is. I'm trying to take like the fairness and all of that stuff. Like, okay, let's take it all out. Let's put this thing in a vacuum, okay? And let's just look at the facts. The playmaker, the guy that you're trying to get the ball in his hands for a team that wins 3 straight national title games in 15 game seasons. First team in modern era college football to do it. And this dude was the dude on offense, the one that everybody game planned against every week. I don't know, man. I just don't know how you cannot, because that is something that nobody has ever done. People have rushed for more yards than Herschel Walker has.
Well, and you said too, does he go over 1,000 yards? If he goes over 1,000 yards, he's going to be Georgia's leading receiver of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to take an extra 2 yards, an
in
extra 3 yards.
Years.
Yeah, exactly.
He'll have to do it without Darnell Washington being the yin, the yang, the bookend that guys also have to game plan against. He'll have the opportunity to do it without Stetson, and maybe he gets Todd Monken to help lead the charge again.
I just, because and the question is greatest Georgia player of all time, right?
The greatest Georgia football player ever. Like, you think of Georgia football, listen, this guy was.
Now we're messing
GOAT.
this up. I said greatest Bulldog ever.
Okay,
ever be a Bulldog.
So greatest.
Not only that, we got NIL money he's giving back to his teammates. I listen.
He's got guns for days. Just whatever you want to pull. I got one.
That does go to the point that I'm about to make, is that there's greatest Bulldog ever is just as much in my mind off the field as it is on the field. And I think
now you're getting into damn good dog territory, Palmer, and that is not somewhere we want to go.
I just don't know that. Again, I think it's the face of the team argument. Brock Bowers hasn't been the face of Georgia.
Man, this
football.
is great. This is like the LeBron versus Michael of Georgia
football. It really
football.
is.
It's subjective. Like, it's subjective to every individual person. Like, when Palmer, when you say he hasn't been the face of the team, I want to go up to the roof of my house and jump off, because I just don't.
Seppuku.
I'm totally joking. It doesn't make me that upset. Okay, I got this pen right here, just right in my eyeball. I just don't think that the PR aspect of it matters. You know, Brock's terrible with the media. Like, he's
and I think that's part of
get me out of here. Get me out of here right now.
I think that's part of the public. I mean, in order to be perceived as the greatest Bulldog of all time, there's got to be a agreement of a sort from people outside of just.
Well, there's never going to be for anybody except for Herschel at this point. I'm just trying to be rogue.
I mean, I think Stetson has made a really strong case being the starting quarterback for 2 national championship teams.
He didn't wave, but there were a few people he didn't wave at that parade, or he would be.
Yeah. He would be the greatest ever.
There's
no doubt about Herschel. I wasn't there. But there was no doubt that Herschel had that magic. Like, in the moment, there was no doubt people were watching him play, and they were saying, this is the best we've ever seen. We've never seen a Bulldog like this.
How about this set of mental gymnastics? Okay, we're talking about greatest Bulldog ever. How coachable was he? You know, did he do what his coaches asked him to do? Brock Bowers, bad in front of the media. Coaches want him to be bad in the media. Brock Bowers does that spectacularly well. Maybe better than he plays football. So, greatest Bulldog ever. I've got you guys from every angle.
And I'll say
greatest Bulldog ever.
I'll tell you this. In my opinion, we can debate this as long as we want. Of course, obviously, we can with everything. Shout out to Chad Donner Schwantz over here for Herschel Walker, Kyler. Them dogs as hell, don't they? Great Squidbillies reference. I really appreciate that. But I will tell you this: there is nobody who has ever played at Georgia, and this is a definitive statement on my point, who has been as surprising as what Brock Bowers has done. We knew Brock Bowers was a good player. Nobody thought that he was going to be what he is. And part of that is he didn't play his senior year of high school football. So nobody really knew what he was going to be about by the time he got there. The dude has shown up and listen, what can you say? Like you said, bro, it's success has followed him as he's moved, I think.
One more piece of food.
You could push back with the biggest surprise being Stetson. He came as a walk-on.
Yeah. That one crept up on us for a long time, though.
I'll say, I've said it before.
There was an incubation period.
The only person that I ever heard call the shot on Bowers was David Pollock, and he was confident about it. He's like, yeah, Darnell's going to be hurt for Clemson. Georgia's thin at tight end. Watch this Bowers kid. He could really be special.
Now, well, I got to say,
remember him having that great of a game against Clemson, and I think it's just because
he didn't have a great game, but they used him to kind of soften that.
Was terrible.
He did did that following week against UAB though. I remember sitting at a Napa pool in Napa, California, watching that game and being like, "Holy snap! This cat's from right here." And we kind of traded places there for a minute. But listen, I got to fight back on David Pollock calling it at that point, because I think we all knew, if you had a source or two at that point at practice, and DP probably saw it for himself. At that point, we knew Georgia had a dude. It was just a matter of kind of getting into it and
high school ranks. Though.
I'm not saying that no one knew he was good. I'm saying Pollock was the only person I heard on the radio actually say, like, this guy can be a game changer this week against Clemson. Like, no one was really thinking about that.
But you look back, and he should have been a top 5 recruit in that class. Like he should have been a top 5, top 8 recruit in that.
Listen, we got another comment over here. Matthew C says, I think Wes has it. Herschel was a national phenomenon. Bowers is great. Phenomenon? No. Brock Bowers is a phenomenon.
Yeah. You got Adam Rittenberg saying he's the best player in college football coming into 2023. There are a lot of people that say that, but the tight end thing, and one of the reasons I love this debate is because the tight end thing clouds a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, but it sucks, and it shouldn't, because the tight end is the best position ever invented.
I personally think that Todd Monken is, like Todd Monken's success at Georgia. And listen, I think the world of him. I think he's extremely smart. I think it's a big product of Brock Bowers, because Bowers gives him a way to tinker with defenses and to yo-yo defenses in such a way that drives them insane. You line up in 12 personnel with 2 tight ends, and they've got to play you like you're in 11, but you can work like you're 12, or you can work like you're 21 with 2 running backs or 2 tight ends. They're going to give him the ball. They're going to let him block on the perimeter. They're going to let him block in line. He doesn't have to get the football to destroy you, because you've got somebody committed to him in coverage. He blocks another guy. He's basically getting he's going happy hour every time he blocks somebody, because he's taking 2 people out of a play. I'm telling you, it really changes the way that Georgia does things. And there's all you have to do is look at the way they're recruiting the tight end position. You look at the way they're recruiting the tight end position. They're recruiting super good athletes who have a chance to give them the same flex and the same, offensive,
dynamic
versatility, scheme versatility that Bowers gives them, because they know how important that is.
Is there? There's probably a pro comparison. From a Georgia perspective, though, I can't think of anybody like him.
No, there's one comparison, and nobody wants to make it. It's Aaron Hernandez.
I'm sorry, you just lost me. What?
As a football player, as what he does on the football field,
he's a killer.
He's very Aaron Hernandez. He really is. Like when Aaron Hernandez was in New England, they would run the stretch play outside zone with him in the backfield. They would go. It is
like that H-back vibe for sure.
Yeah.
What he's doing to defenses is criminal.
Yeah. Bodies everywhere.
You're going to get us in trouble.
They're trying to lock him up, but they can't.
I like Dylan. Dylan Brooks is right. Real George Kittle guy.
I can see that.
George.
I can see that.
The Kittle and Kelsey comparisons, I think, are fair.
But Brock Bowers.
You can't hand the ball off to Kelsey
or Kittle.
Sure.
I mean, you probably could more with Kelsey than you can Kittle, but I think he's like Kelsey as a receiver, and then he's Kittle as a blocker. Good guys, because he's really good in that area. Like he'll snap your head back. I mean, he'll make you taste a little blood. I mean,
like Aaron Hernandez.
Yeah.
All right. Dog stock time. I'm going stock down on Brock Bowers, man. That guy sucks. I'm going stock up on this Georgia-Bama rivalry. I think we can really call this thing a rivalry now. Georgia's had a lot of murky rivals in the SEC through the years, just depending on which part of the state you live in. I think Alabama is officially now Georgia's internet rival. You have South Carolina if you're on the east part of the state. You got Florida if you're down south. You got Auburn if you're out on the western side. If you're in Columbus, Alabama is over all of them. They are the overarching rival for Georgia right now on the internet, and I tweeted about it a few days ago. This rivalry, this nastiness on Twitter is going to be legendary this summer, and I'm saying stock up based on the recent events of Glenn Schumann. For now, staying with Georgia, not going to Bama. There are a lot of hurt feelings from Alabama fans, and I know that because they tweeted at us about Glenn Schumann going to Bama, and that did not happen. So I know that they're working through some things tonight, and it's just going to make for some entertaining back and forth that I will probably end up muting by May. Stock up on the Georgia-Bama rivalry being a real rivalry in the conference.
Okay. Somebody else? Or should I step in?
I don't know. Let's just end it.
There's a little dead air there. That's great. You're muted, Jake.
I'm sorry. I was going to try and hold my straight face as long as I possibly could and just look at the camera. But
no, I'll do stocks next. And I'm going to say stock up on Georgia's 2024 class. If you're not paying attention, and you should be, Georgia's sitting at number 1 right now. Also stock up on Jake Roos's free time at this moment because we're as far away from signing day as we could possibly be. And I think that that's great. It's a little quiet right now. It's all getting ready to pick up, though. Spring practice will be here before we know it. They'll have guys on campus. They'll be out on the road, too. There's a lot going on in the terms of recruiting, and spring football's always a big time. A lot of offers going out right now. But currently, Georgia's sitting at number 1 in the class for 2024. And I don't think they're going to be doing a lot of looking back from there. Number 1 player at the position at cornerback, Ellis Robinson. Number 1 tight end per the consensus, Landon Thomas. Number 2 safety in the country, Peyton Woodyard. Number 3 safety in the country, Jalen Hayward. Number 5 linebacker in the country, DeMarcus Riddick. Number 8 at his position, Nye Carr. You got Dwight Phillips, the number 6 athlete in this class. Giovanni Mizell, number 6 at the running back spot. Ryan Puglisi, number 11 consensus, number 3 on 3. And then Sokovie White rounding it out, a 3-star guy, the only one in this class currently. Georgia absolutely killing it out on the recruiting trail right now. There's no question about it. You're talking about every guy for the most part. I mean, you got 8 of your top 10 consensus top 100 players. Georgia has a real chance, I think, to compete for greatest class ever in terms of ranking here if they hold as they do. I know that's big to say, but when you look at the in-state talent available this year, especially at key positions, they've got guys like Colin Simmons out of Texas, the number 1 edge rusher in this class, heavily considering them. Don't know that they'll land him. Texas and LSU going to be compelling there. They've got everything going their way. We talked about Glenn Schumann and his recruiting prowess early. Georgia has a staff full of dogs when it comes to the recruiting trail, and they have success on their side. It's meshing together. I think 2024 is going to be, at worst, if it's not the record-setting class, I think it will be I think it will be Kirby Smart's best class in terms of ranked talent.
Roos,
and that includes 2 number 1 classes already.
That is correct.
19 and 20.
That is correct.
Roos, a lot of people making a big deal about Coach Prime tweeting out that he wants to take all this talent out of Georgia. But I found that kind of funny because Kirby Smart doesn't, necessarily take a ton of recruits from Georgia. Not that wouldn't be an impressive feat if Deion Sanders would come in here and to the state of Georgia and get another crop of Travis Hunters out to Colorado. But it's not necessarily the dig at Kirby Smart individually that a lot of people wanted to make that.
No, I don't think so. I think it's a smart play on Deion's part to come into the state of Georgia. Georgia's one of the most talent-rich states. I think they've ascended to number 3 in the nation in terms of the guys that they put out. So, he should absolutely be here. He wouldn't be doing his job if he wasn't. But if you're a kid in state and you're considering, all right, where can I go and be developed by the best and win national championships in the next couple of years? Look, Deion may prove everybody to be wrong and may ascend and send guys all over the place. But right now, as it stands, there's no comparison between the 2 schools. Georgia has the proven success in terms of the W column and in terms of the draft status. Dogs will pick and choose, I think, to some degree. They couldn't do it last year. Caleb Downs, Justice Haynes, those guys got away. But they're going to get their fair share of the top players in the Peach State. Dogs are in a really strong position, and the national brand is as strong as it has ever been because the success has been sustained. You've seen them go out to California. You've seen them get guys from Texas. They're going to continue to do that in 2024.
Real quick, teaser for tomorrow morning. Big news coming on I was talking about that national brand, out-of-state prospect. Big news coming tomorrow over at DawgsHQ. I'll have it out first thing in the morning. So,
gosh, man, we're 52 minutes into the show. You couldn't have teed that up a little sooner.
Listen, man, people. Wasn't going to give it to them on this show.
Reverse pyramid style, buddy.
Yeah.
All right.
We're doing we go pyramid style on this
stock. Yeah, stock up on that. All right,
stick with us till the end. We'll give you something good.
I'll stock down on the basketball team, right?
Yeah, bingo. Stock down on basketball. Stock down on the time after football. No, I am. I'm going to continue with the theme of recruiting and stock up on 3. Give ourselves a pat on the back, guys. On 3, put it together last week. Looking at the consensus, on 3 was highest in terms of the 4 recruiting outlets and who was the highest on each individual player. If my math is correct, Georgia or on 3 was highest on Georgia's signing class in terms of, I think there were 8 guys that on 3 had the highest ranking for. That includes consensus 5-star Monroe Freeling, who was a top 10 player in the class, number 7 overall, by far the highest there. He was 33, 56, 53 for the other 3. Georgia also on 3, also very high on a couple of the offensive linemen, Kelton Smith and Jamal Merriweather, as well as
big difference on Jamal Merriweather.
Yes, for sure. And I've actually got that one pulled up. On 3, 195, 13 offensive tackle. You look at the other ones, they don't have him ranked nationally. 32 offensive tackle, 42 offensive tackle, and no ranking for his position. On 3, very high on him in terms of the national industry comparison. Also the wide receivers, and that's a group that wide receivers and corners, 2 positions that were priorities in this class. On 3, the highest on Tyler Williams and Yazid Haynes for the wide receivers. And for the cornerbacks, Daniel Harris and Chris Peel on 3, also the highest there in terms of Kyron Jones, who's listed as an athlete but likely to play corner. So stock up on 3 recruiting and how high we are on Georgia.
Stock up on Spanx. I just saw that that ad up there in the top right.
Hey, at least it wasn't toenail fungus.
At least it's not the toe ad again.
Wes, yeah, at least the toes aren't there anymore. Wes over here buying Spanx. Nah, Wes don't need them. He's a slim cat.
These are not targeted ads.
My stock up comes with a story, and it began over a century ago in Ireland. That's when the family of Kenny McIntosh decided to come over to the States. They decided to make the move over to the States. They settled in Florida. They said
O'Malley's originally, I believe they were.
They said no more potato farming for us. We are living where it's warm. And Kenny McIntosh created a name for himself in the state of Florida. Okay. And then Georgia comes calling, and he goes to Georgia. And he has a good career. 1,333 total yards as a senior, helping Georgia go 15-0 and win a national championship. Kenny McIntosh participated in the Senior Bowl, and he was asked after the Senior Bowl yesterday by some gentleman that didn't really want to hear his explanation, I don't think, for why he did. He kind of appreciate you. But he asked him, why did you choose Georgia over Florida? And Kenny McIntosh said, quote, "Man, I wanted to win." And perfect answer to that question for a Florida kid that did go to Georgia and did a lot against Florida in terms of on the field, off the field, demoralizing. A couple of coaches I think got fired or maybe just one coach got fired during his time there. But yeah, Kenny McIntosh, those roots all the way back in Ireland to Florida to Georgia. He's still a Florida boy. But he chose to play at Georgia for one reason. He wanted to win. And that was a perfect answer. And I'm sure Gator fans are going to really love him from here on out.
Yeah, Kenny McIntosh, DGD.
Yeah.
Easy
for
to
sure.
Say. And I said, too, you better believe that when some Florida kids come on a recruiting visit, they're going to put that video up on those video boards inside the practice facility.
Hey, where would y'all, just out of curiosity, where would y'all rank him in terms of Kirby Smart era running backs?
Let me see what he does. Let me see what he does in the league.
He's behind. He's behind.
In terms of their Georgia careers, he's
behind Chubb and Michelle. He's behind Swift.
He's top 5. He's top 5 for me.
Yeah, I'd say he's top 5. I would put him above. He had a better season than
Zamir
and Cook. He had a better season above.
Yeah.
He had a season way better than either one of those guys had.
What about? Harrion. I think you got to go above them.
I think Swift
Holyfield had a 1,000-yard season, but
yeah, I think Holyfield is the only other guy. The big three are ahead of him: Swift, Chubb, Michelle, for sure, and then Holyfield is the only other guy I'd consider just because he had 1,000 yards by himself.
1,000-yard seasons.
Who's that?
Did Swift have 2 1,000-yard seasons?
Yeah, he's one of like 5 backs in school history to have more than one.
So he did it in 19. I couldn't remember if he did or didn't.
Yeah, it's Herschel, Chubb, Michelle, Noshawn, and Swift are the only backs in school history that have ever had more than one 1,000-yard season.
That's pretty good company right there.
Yeah.
Guys, what's going on tomorrow night?
Hey, we're bark after dark.
Bark in the dark.
Is that what it is? Bark in the dark, bark after dark? No.
Bark after dark. Hey, whatever. We just named the thing.
We'll bark in the dark. We'll bark after dark. We'll bark in the morning if that's what it takes. Come join us 9:00 tomorrow night. We make it started a little bit earlier. It's just going to be me and Roos. We've got some guests lined up for shows coming forward. We'll talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about kind of the mission statement for what we're trying to do. Guys, we're just trying to entertain and tell good stories. I hope we hit it on the screws every single time, but I don't know if we will.
People listening to
the podcast me every time
that every single time that happens.
It gets me every time thinking about the audio only listeners.
They'll be all right.
Come check us out on YouTube. That's the biggest reason why.
Matthew C
with the boys.
Matthew C wants to know what you drinking tomorrow night, Jake, and I'm curious too. What you gonna be drinking tomorrow night?
Your name's Jake too.
Well, I understand. But I drink every time we do this.
Teetotaler that Bruce.
I'm gonna have I'm probably gonna have a few fingers of sipping tequila with a La Hacienda de Chihuahua, an organic tequila. It's very smooth, kind of has a little bit of a. We'll talk about it later. I'll tell you guys about it later. Let me not spin out here and talk about the vanilla notes.
Muschamps reading glasses says drinking Jim Beam. You don't want me to do that show on Jim Beam. I promise you.
That microwave will be on the floor.
I'm a beer guy, so I'm gonna try to switch it up from week to week with beers. So
awesome.
I'm gonna go hit the beer cave over at Ingles and see what they got over there, and got a big day planned. Might hit the Home Depot, get some shutters. We don't know. We don't know. We won't have time.
Yes.
Yeah,
maybe in that order.
Beyond stop.
Producer Palmer may throw back too.
Yeah, Palmer's going to be a part of this thing.
Palmer's going to be off camera, so he might get.
Palmer's going to be sipping on some Blue Moon with an orange peel in the top.
I can see that for Palmer.
I don't hate that.
No. Tomorrow night though, just me and Jake, and it's the J&J law firm together for the first time, and we're going to interview each other, which is going to be fun. Something we've never done before. So I'm more interested in the questions that Ro comes up with for me than I am how that's actually going to go, because I've got some real interesting questions coming for Jake Ro.
Oh,
man. Bark After Dark is a great name, but y'all could have had Barking with the Boys. You could have had Between Two Jakes.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear it, guys.
We got a rebrand coming soon. Rebrand coming.
Yeah, no, Bark After Dark is here to stay. Y'all check it out tomorrow night, right here on the DawgsHQ YouTube channel. Stay tuned to that. Stay tuned to this and everything that is still to come this week. It's going to be a magical week in the land of the back-to-back defending national champ, Georgia Bulldogs. Y'all hit like and subscribe if you don't already. Sign up for a premium membership at DawgsHQ.com, and we will see you back here on Wednesday, 8:30 p.m., and on Bark After Dark on Monday night. Peace.